Hi there. Day 83. Didn't get a lot done, I must admit. Someone asked me about my sweater. I wear it a lot. Yes, this is the sweater I wear around the house. It's got little spots on it that I don't bother cleaning. It's kind of comfortable. Whatever I have on when I come home, I take it off and I put on this, and then I feel comfortable. Today I started my writing. I started yesterday, actually. And what I'm finding is that writing on my iPad is really handy because I have a Korean, I'm not going to show you, but forget it. I have a Korean keypad on the iPad. Problem with the Korean alphabet, the keypad, whether it's on my computer here or on the iPad, is that, I can't kind of type freehand like this with 10 fingers. I have to kind of point at each little squiggly and kind of put them together to form the words. And I'm learning how to do that. If I do it on the computer, I have to do it with my mouse. If I do it on the iPad, I just do it, pointing at them. So it's really a lot handier. And I use Google Documents or Google Flash, whatever they call it, Google Drive. And so that I've got a document in Google Drive. So if I'm working on my computer, I can add sentences to it. And if I'm working on the iPad, wherever I am, I'm adding sentences, and I hope to accumulate a whole bunch of sentences that then I will submit for correction. At this point, I'm still training myself in writing because it's all new to me. So I'm actually, copying sentences where there's Korean and English. I read the sentence, then I read the English, and I try to recreate the Korean. But of course, I'm not so familiar yet with some of the composite, words in Korean. So I'm always cheating and looking at the Korean. So it won't really require correction. But I'm hoping that after a couple of days, I'll start creating my own texts again, writing. The trouble is finding time. Like today again, I had hockey this morning. Then this afternoon, I had to go an hour away to Richmond to be on a Chinese radio program. It was a follow-up to that discussion we had about investor immigrants and so forth. So I was on Chinese radio. Of course, I listened. And again, I'm listening to Russian half the time when I'm driving because of the events heating up in Ukraine. Got in a little bit of Korean listening. Then I got home and I was going to write some Korean, and I go to ShusterLive, which is this Ukrainian television program out of Kiev. And I tell you, that was an absolutely fascinating program. If anyone goes to ShusterLive, if you understand Russian, and I'm understanding more and more Ukrainian. And they had, first of all, they had a group of 6 high school students from Donetsk, eastern Ukraine, where they have all the troubles right now, who had visited Lvov in the western Ukraine, the Ukrainian-speaking part, a week earlier, and then they had some Ukrainian-speaking, mainly, Western Ukrainians who had spent a week in Donetsk. So they were there to talk a little bit about, their perspective based on their experience. And this exchange had been organized by the Donbass hockey team, which is in the KHL, the Continental Hockey League, which is primarily in Russia, but also in Czech Republic and elsewhere. And so they had the captain, whose name is Fedotenka in Russian, but who was known as Fedotenko when he played, and he's twice won a Stanley Cup in the NHL, and he's the captain of the team. So he was there. And then they had 2 politicians from eastern Ukraine. They had some politicians from the western Ukraine. They had shots of the armed groups that have seized the buildings in Donetsk and Lugansk, proclaiming, with their machine guns, proclaiming the, whatever it was, Donetsk Republic or Lugansk Republic and stuff like that. And there was an awful lot. And then they had the former president of the, first president of Ukraine, Leonid Kravchuk, who speaks very well. I mean, the overwhelming, first of all, it really lays bare. I mean, people were telling you exactly what they thought. And there's no question that the Eastern Ukrainians were not on the same page as the Western Ukrainians. And lots of speculation and lots of, and an expression of, let's kind of find some area of compromise, but it looks very, very difficult. You could see in the facial expressions. And I guess the encouraging thing was that that students looked a lot more sensible than the politicians. Encouraging, I don't know, but for the future, perhaps. And that really the politicians on both sides just mess things up. But it's still as drama with the kids and the movie, the shot, not movie, but the videos of events and stuff like that. I mean, it was amazing. So there was an 1.5-hour shot that I didn't do Korean. Interesting too that we had an election in Quebec and of course a major issue in Ukraine is this Russian language issue. I mean, 50% of the population has Russian as their native language. The Western Ukrainians want to establish, Ukrainian as the language that is their identity and all this kind of stuff. However, 50% of the people, they speak Russian as their native language. And yet, as I mentioned a while ago, when Venedicto Moskvi interviewed the Minister of Education of Ukraine, he said that at universities in Ukraine, you can only take courses in Ukrainian and English. Now, I don't understand that. That, to me, for what, it just doesn't make sense. Even in Quebec, so then I moved to Quebec where we had an election, and language there is always a big issue. Identity is always a big issue. And the separatist government of Quebec, this is the thing, that we have had a separatist government in Quebec for a good portion of the last 35 years, and they have had 2 referenda, and they're still very, want to have another referendum to separate. And quite honest, if they separate, there won't be any bloodshed. It'll be like Czechoslovak, the Czechs and Slovaks. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's not worth fighting over. It's a matter of what people want to do and where their interests are, economic interests, whatever. At any rate, the separatists lost. So the Federalist government, the Federalist Party came in. It's interesting that the staunchest separatists are the people 50 and over. And that as you work your way down in age, people are less interested in that. Because it's a different world. You can still have your language, protect your language. You can let other people have their language. And you deal with people, and if you're a member of Link, you learn different languages, and you deal with people from all over the world. So, at any rate, with all of that going on, I didn't do much Korean, I have to admit. So, I don't know, 7 days to go. I don't know how far I'll get. I'm starting to run out of gas here, because there's so many other things that I want to do. It's a good thing I really piled in hard, in the beginning part. Hopefully tomorrow I can crank it up. I have a discussion tomorrow for half an hour with Clara in Paris, who speaks beautiful French, and she's my Korean tutor. She's Korean. And I'm going to do some more writing and listening and reading, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for listening. Bye.